Welcome to the Transform podcast series, hosted by Vercium, a learning and development organisation specialising in medical affairs. Each episode, we will explore different topics with our Vercium team and expert guests to bring you the latest thinking in learning and development. In this latest episode, we will be exploring the science behind behaviours and how to replace bad habits with better ones.
Hello and welcome back to the Vercium Podcast. And once again, I have my colleague and friend with me, Amanda Alexander. Hello, Amanda. It's nice to see you again today.
And you too, Lou. Hi.
Okay, so the title of this podcast is Habits. And we're going to look at habits closely, their value, and some myths behind habit formation. So habits are something that we've introduced lately to the Vercium Learning Solutions, and where we find them to be very useful is something that's often lacking in the learning environment. So when you work with clients and you do workshops or provide learning solutions, you often don't have an understanding of how this learning is going to be applied back in the real world. Well, habits provide a segue to that real world. They empower the learner to take the initiative in their own time. They're quick, they're easy, they're effective if they understand the process. And we have our internal expert on habits, Amanda. So Amanda, we'd love to learn a lot more today about habits and how we form them and why they're so important. So if you could just give us an overview of what a habit is and how people form them, that would be wonderful.
Okay, so I want to give you an overview of habits by an analogy. So think of habits like planting a tiny little seed in your garden, and at first it might not seem much. It's just you keep planting seeds, a small action you do regularly. But time goes by, the seed starts to grow into a big, strong tree. Habits work in the same way. And they work in the way via compounding. And you've probably heard the expression compound interest in terms of finances.
Yes.
Think about habits in the same way. So when you do something, whether it's good or bad, you do it over and over again, the effects pile up over time. So just like the money that grows in your bank account or the debt, depending on which it is, the more you do it, the more you get that compound result. It gets bigger and bigger than you would ever have thought it would get because of that compounding building up on it. So when it comes to habits, the small things you do repeatedly, and we are talking specifically about small habits, and we're going to be talking about tiny habits as well. Those things that we do repeatedly, they will have a big impact over the long run.
Okay, so is it fair to say then, having worked with people in a learning and development capacity for a long time, that there are lots of people that develop a lot of habits that don't help them?
Correct.
And so what I know what you've done is a lot of work on formulation of new habits. And so do you have to undo an old habit to begin a new habit? And if so, how would you do that?
Oh, that's a really good question, Lee. So the best way to undo an old habit or a bad habit, a habit that isn't serving you, let's call it, because, bad habit is subjective, isn't it? A habit that's not serving you, it's not helping you to get the outcome that you want. The best way to break that is not to try to stop it, but to replace it with something that you will serve you.
And I've noticed a lot of non-serving habits have actually had a purpose or served somebody up until a certain point, and then maybe they've changed roles. So, for example, in medical affairs, you've got an MSL whose habits are in great communication, in disseminating the data in an articulate way, and then they get promoted to something that needs a whole new set of skills, such as people management, lots of empathy, so on and so forth. And what they've had before doesn't necessarily serve them. And so that habit changing is something we end up coaching a lot around. So you said that there's this replacement. Could you talk us through that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let me just take a very simple real life example. Nothing to do with medical. Let's think about scrolling on your phone at night. Have you ever done that, Lee?
Oh God, I need to stop doing it. Yeah, it's too much at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, so can I work with you as
Please do, and then I'll share it with my partner as well.
So it's time to fess up, Lee. Tell me about your scrolling habit.
So I think what happens at the end of I kind of think it's replaced TV a little bit, because sometimes you'll sit down and you'll watch a bit of a box set or a film, but it's so much easier. You just pick up a phone, and it's quite addictive. You get these funny, simple videos that you see. And to be honest, last night I saw one which had me laughing for ages. And I find it as a form of relaxation. So I'm getting that nice dopamine hit. And I'm switching off through the day. But then what I find is I've been scrolling for like half an hour or something, and I get annoyed with myself because I'm thinking this isn't an effective use of time, and I'm annoyed with how much time's gone, and I feel a slave to it. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. But I sometimes pick up my phone and I don't know why I've picked it up as well. So that I don't know if that's a habit in itself. So has that given you the information you need?
Oh yes, this is juicy.
Okay.
This is juicy.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to pick up on the last thing you said. Sometimes I pick up my phone and I don't know why I've picked it up. So I'm going to tell you why you picked it up. Before I do, I'm just going to give the context for this. So I'm a Tiny Habits certified coach, as you know. Tiny Habits is a methodology that was created by a doctor in Stanford University, BJ Fogg. Now, BJ has studied behavior over many, many years, and he has tested out his methodology on it must be over 60,000 people now. And he's created a behavioral model. And what that behavioral model does is it gives us a framework to help us to understand the factors influencing human behavior. Now, all this will come back to your phone scrolling in just a moment.
Sure.
First of all, I just want to show you what this is. So his model is called, the formula, is called B equals MAP. B stands for behavior, M stands for motivation, A for ability, and P for prompt. So what this does, it breaks down the parts that come together that drive our behaviors, which then become habits, because a habit is something we just repeatedly do until we kind of don't know why we do it, because we're doing it on autopilot. Yeah. So the reason that you pick up your phone is because, quite simply, the phone is there. Now, that is the P in the model. It's the prompt. A prompt is a cue or a trigger that reminds us, encourages us to perform a behavior. So having your phone on the sofa while you're watching TV, there it is, that prompts us to pick up the phone. So that's your prompt. Now, why do you scroll? You scroll, as you said, you get that you're aware that you get that dopamine hit. But let's look first of all at the ability. Your ability to scroll, would you say it's easy or difficult to scroll on your phone?
Easy.
Yeah, easy. So we've got this bad habit, scrolling on your phone. The prompt is easy because it's there. The ability is easy. Anyone can do that. You've got a finger, you just scroll it, open it up and scroll it. It doesn't require a lot of brain power or effort to do that. And then the motivation, you've got that motivation because you're getting those dopamine hits. And as we all know, the more dopamine hits we get, the more we want. That dopamine is what drives human behavior. And the people who design these phones know that. The people who design the social media and all the apps, they know that. They're designed around that. So in this case, we've got high motivation, high ability, and high prompt. Congratulations. You just succeeded in the behavior and the repeated behavior habit of scrolling on your phone.
So what is I've always thought that dopamine hit it's like a reward, isn't it? And that's the addictive part of a habit, isn't it? That's what keeps you going back. It's that chemical reaction in your brain that makes you do it. So how do you, like you say, replace it with a more positive one, like, I don't know, yoga or something physical or mindfulness or something like that? How would I replace scrolling with that?
Okay, so again, absolutely great question. So replacing, I mean, I know you just meant it tongue in cheek, but replacing your scrolling habit with yoga is like a little thing to a big thing. So let's say you decide, let's say I was coaching you and you said, oh, I want to do yoga instead of scrolling. So first of all, let's just imagine it's at the end of the long day. You're on the sofa, you're feeling tired, your knees aching. And I say to you, right, Lee, I want you to do 10 minutes of yoga instead of scrolling on your phone. What's your motivation going to be for doing that, high or low?
Not low, but much lower than picking up the phone.
Okay. And what's your ability going to be for doing that yoga?
I think you've seen me doing yoga, Amanda, and you can answer that question. So I think that your laugh gives it away. So we can move on.
Nothing with you, not you. And then, okay, so and is there a prompt for the yoga? Have you got a cue to
yeah, but it's not the cue you'd think. The cue is usually I can't get up off the couch, or I'm too stiff and I need to do some yoga. So it's not usually a good prompt. It's usually a painful prompt.
Okay, so let's say that we were going to create a tiny habit with that yoga. First of all, to design a good behavioral habit, what we want to do is create a nice anchor, a nice prompt that will help you to, that will say to your brain, oh, right, this is my cue to do the action.
Yeah.
So what might if you're, let's say you're in the living room, what might prompt you to do some yoga? Apart from the pain.
Can
I give you a suggestion?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking it's the environment. The environment has to be sort of yogified, if that makes sense. I have to have some space. I have to know there's going to be limited distractions. There's nothing to do. And please go ahead.
Okay.
So
first of all, what I would do, and you got it spot on there, is designing your environment. So the first thing that I might do, you might have a tiny habit that would be after I whatever the thing is that you do before you sit down for some telly in the evening, whereas you normally have your phone with you, you might say, after I clear up the last of the dishes from dinner, I will put my phone on charge in the kitchen. So first of all, that we will create a tiny habit that is literally putting your phone somewhere else. And that's it. That's that habit. So that's one habit. And what you might do is you go, after I clear up the last of the dishes, put them in the dishwasher or whatever, I'll put my phone in the kitchen. And then you create what's called a celebration. And the celebration is basically creating that dopamine hit. It's creating the anchor. And your celebration might be giving yourself a yes. It might be internally going, good job, Lee, good job. You might do a little jig in the kitchen. That will anchor that habit once you do it repeatedly. So that's
could be a chocolate biscuit, couldn't it? Could it be a chocolate biscuit?
No. It definitely could be a chocolate biscuit. Your celebration is something that you can do within a second. And unfortunately, you can't eat chocolate biscuit within a second. And then we'd be designing for another habit breaking, wouldn't we? So let's do yoga. Let's say that you want to do a little bit of yoga. Now, with a tiny habit, you want it to be so small that you can't fail. So small that you can't fail. So thinking about the prompt, your prompt might be that you have your yoga mat next to the sofa. That might be where it lives. Or it might be that you kind of stack that little habit of, after I finish clearing up dishes, I will plug in my phone and I will grab my yoga mat. Now, this is where people go, hey, that might be where your habit ends for now. We might just go, right, just ingrain that habit of getting your yoga mat, and you sit down and your yoga mat's there, and you actually, maybe you don't do any yoga, but you congratulate yourself for getting the yoga mat. There's going to become a time when you just go, I've got the yoga mat. why don't I just do a quick cat-cow? That's what I want to say, a quick cat-cow. So after I enter the living room for the evening, I will do 2 cat-cows, and then you give yourself a celebration.
So the dopamine becomes the progression, doesn't it? And progression and moving forward to it. And to be fair, yoga always has, that dopamine hit afterwards, because you always feel so much better for it. Okay.
How does that sound to you? Do you think that's something you could try?
I was thinking of trying it this evening.
Okay. How are you going to design it so it's fail-proof? So easy that you can't possibly fail.
Well, the yoga mat is in the room where we do it, but I need to make it more visible. I think the key is removing, like you say, replacing the old habits. So putting the phone somewhere, which is the blocker of new good habits, I think, because you're tied into an old habit. I have noticed myself when I do the scrolling that I'm like, why am I doing this? What am I doing? No, I've seen that type of it, and they're all the same. And I'm almost categorizing them into bins of rubbish, thinking they're not serving me, they're not serving me. So I think my brain is already looking for a new habit. And so putting the phone away will be a big step in the right direction. And then replacing the having the yoga mat front and center of the room might be the cue for me.
Great. And I think there's a key thing here. You said you're always scrolling, you're going, oh, this isn't good for me, this isn't good for me. One of the key things to know about changing behavior is we change behavior when we feel good, not when we feel bad. Beating yourself up does not work.
So that's interesting. So it's a bad habit. I'm, negatively reinforcing it by saying, I think I've answered my own question, because negative reinforcement still is reinforcement, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're still, maybe you haven't, but I'm looking for a reason why I think I'm letting go by saying this isn't good for me. So self-punishment, depreciation around the video watching. Why doesn't that work?
Okay. As human beings, the way our brains are wired is for survival, to feel good, to feel comfortable, to feel safe. And when you are saying to yourself, I'm beating myself up, you're not feeling good, are you?
No.
Go with the way your brain is wired. Make yourself feel good. That's why the celebration is such a key part of it.
Okay, well, so thanks, Amanda. I find that personally very useful. However, I think it would be really useful if we could just consolidate what you went through, because you talked about quite a few things in a short space of time. Just an approach or a methodology to enable people to think about their habits that are not serving them and how they can replace them with some positive ones. What's the formula, so to speak?
Okay, so here's a really great thing that I'd invite people to do. Think about a habit that you have. And now you've heard about Lee's scrolling habit. You might have that, or it might be something else. It could be a good habit or a bad habit. Get curious about it. Think about what it is that makes you do that. What makes it a habit? And the way that you can start dissecting it is by filtering it through this formula that I gave you, this Fogg behavioral model. B equals MAP. So just to recap what that is, B stands for the behavior. So what is the behavior that you're doing? And then think about what's the motivation that you have. So the motivation can be influenced by your needs, your emotions, your beliefs. If you find the behavior appealing, if it's valuable to you in whatever way, then you're going to be motivated to do it. And then the A is for your ability. And that's how easy or difficult it is for that behavior. Now, for your habit, it's going to be that you've created something that is easy for you to do if it's a habit that you don't think about. So think about that ability and what your ability is to do it and what gives you that ability to do it. And then the P is for your prompt. What's the cue? What's the trigger that reminds you or encourages you to perform that behavior? And remembering that the prompt can be external, as in Lee's example of having his phone there, or it can be an internal prompt. It can be a thought or an emotion that prompts you to do that behavior. when behaviour is prompted at the right time in the right way, it's more likely to happen. So I would invite you just to be a detective about your habits. Once you dissect one habit, you can then apply it to something else and then think, okay, so how can I create a habit that's serving me using this model? Okay,
wonderful. Thank you, Amanda. Thanks for your time today. And thank you to those that listened, and we'll see you again in the near future. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you found it useful, please consider sharing with a colleague. To learn more about what we do or listen to further podcasts, please visit our website, vercium.com.